Well, it's already 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and start. We'll call this meeting to order, the Stephenville Board of Adjustment. First, we need to consider the approval of the minutes from last meeting, which was July 12, 2018. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
I move we approve the minutes for July 12th, 2018.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Chris. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Any friendly amendments or, hey, Russ. All right. Well, hearing none, we'll have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All right, so the minutes are ready to go. I'll sign them after the meeting. All right. Well, now we'll open up the public hearing. We have several cases today to hear, and so we'll start with case V 2018-005, applicant Benigno Mascaro. Are you here? Well, Jeremy, do you want to introduce this case to us?
Is the applicant here? I need to make sure the applicant's here.
The applicant does have to be here, right?
That's right.
All right. Well, since Mr. Mascaro is not here, then we'll have to either table this or
We
see
can
what-
table it up to one time.
Okay. So that case will have to be tabled. We'll move on to sorry?
Need a motion?
We don't need
Yes.
do we need a motion
Let's
for-
make a motion.
All right. Anyone?
Motion to table it?
I'll move to table
All right.
case number V 2018-005 in the absence of the applicant.
And Ben
Second.
seconds. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. All right, we'll just table it, please. All right, the next case is
If
number.
you will, for the sake of the thing, say this will be on the agenda for the next meeting. That reduces we don't have to put it as a public notice if we go ahead and specify the date of the next meeting.
All right, what's the date of the next meeting, Jeremy?
You were one step ahead of me.
All right.
So it'd be September 13th. So that'll be put on the September 13th meeting.
Very good. All right, so we will table case number V 2018-005 until the September 13, 2018 meeting of the Board of Adjustment. Our next case to hear is case number V 2018-006. Is Mr. Jeff Tucker here?
Yes.
All right. Jeremy, if you'd introduce this case to us, and then Mr. Tucker, if you'd get ready to speak here at the podium.
Mr. Tucker is requesting a variance from the section 5.5F of the Stephenville zoning ordinance in order to install ribbed sheet metal as siding, which is not listed as a primary material in section 10.E1 exterior building material standard on the residence located 1103 Dodge, being lots 20 and 21, E50 of 20 and 21 of the Belmont addition to the city of Stephenville. Staff has no objection to the request. If you guys have looked through this section, as part of our building code or part of the building materials in our zoning code, as a primary material, they should use one of those A through G. And this material is not listed on there, which is why Mr. Tucker is here asking for a variance.
Very good. Mr. Tucker?
Yeah, I'm just asking for a variance for the rib sheet. I understand that there is some metal allowed, which is a lap siding metal. I'm wanting to use this metal. It's available to me. I'm trying to put something on there that's not going to dilapidate or have to be painted in that neighborhood around the houses there. There's tons of different types of wood that is just rotting, and I'm going to eventually have this house as a rent house. My daughter's moving into it, and I just don't want to have the maintenance of the upkeep on it. I'd like to get variance for all of it on there. If not, I'd like to see if there was some kind of percentage that I might could use. Only the front of the house is seen from the road. I don't know if I could get the sides or the back for this, or if I can get any of it.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Tucker?
What material is it now?
There's nothing on it now.
It's new construction? Or?
Well, it was a house that was moved on this lot. All the siding was off of it.
Okay.
It's just a framed house.
Okay, I got you.
What's the main reason you want to use that alternate material?
The main reason is because I have it, and it's not an extra cost to me, but it's also a material I wanna use, because I don't have to worry about replacing it later. I don't have to worry about the paint or the material going bad.
Is this rib sheet metal the same as like you see metal buildings? Is that the same metal or what's it different?
Yeah, it is, but we're not gonna do it in an up and down, so it doesn't look like a barn. I don't want it to look like a barn either. I want it to look like a house. So we're gonna do it different runs down the bottom, some going up top.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Tucker.
Do we know when we,
I have one more question.
Yeah. Karen?
Would you be opposed to, say, a third of it being, say, stone or brick or something,
yeah, well, I'm not.
at least
I'm-
across the front?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put stone on it at all, but I could use a wood siding. Like I said, that neighborhood is just, the house next door has shingles on the walls. Composition shingles on the walls. I mean, I want it to look nice, but I'm not gonna go to the effort to put brick or rock on it. Now, I could put some wood siding on the front of it and to accent some of this rib, but I would still like to use the rib down the sides and the back if possible.
You're just asking for, I thought it was installing rib sheet metal as siding, but you're saying siding would be actually on more than just the sides. It's siding on the front and the
It's
sides.
complete all, yeah, this
I
house has
gotcha.
nothing around the whole house.
It's just a funny word. It's a misnomer.
Yes.
It's a fronting too. It's not just the.
Welcome to English
It's
teacher.
it's siding on the fronting. All right. All right. So
Yeah,
you-
it's a complete wrap on the house.
I gotcha. Okay, so you'd be open to the idea of having wood on the front, but then metal rib siding on the sides.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. Tucker?
I think what you would do in that situation is,
Grant
I'll
with
let you finish,
modification.
I'll let you finish before I.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. In the public hearing.
All right. So we appreciate your time, and we might call you back up here in a second. but
Okay, thank you.
Anyone from the community have? Do we have anyone here to speak to this request? All right. So we'll close the public hearing on this case.
Mr.
and-
Chairman, I have a question.
Yeah, we'll have
Jer-
discussion among the board.
Okay. Jeremy,
Yes, sir.
is this like a rezoning where the neighbors get a letter or anything on a variance?
Yes, sir. Anytime we do a board adjustment, a public hearing, all the neighbors within 200 feet get a notification, as well as we put it in the paper, and we notify the public that we're doing this for this
Thank you.
specific location.
So they already knew.
Right.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say is, for the sake of Miss Wallace, you wouldn't put a restriction on, hey, we'll allow you to use this siding, but then you gotta use wood too. You would say, here's we want a percentage of a primary material. Let him pick stone, wood, and then you allow him to use 75% or whatever percentage of the material that he wants. That's an option. You guys decide but if you guys wanted to go that route, that's what you would do.
Well,
So on page, 25 of 50, we have within our zoning ordinance a list of the exterior building material standard, and some of them are primary, and then there's a list of alternative materials. Is that what you're talking about,
That's
Jeremy?
right.
That we would
Yes.
stipulate a certain percentage that we would?
If
that's what I wanted.
If that's what Miss Wallace was kind of alluding
I
to,
get
so I just wanted to kind of clear that
Mhm.
up.
Can I say something?
Yes,
On the primary, it does say.
come on back to the mic.
It does say they do, allow the lap siding metal, but it doesn't really define what that is. This is still a lap siding.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I said, really, I think this is a matter of just semantics and what you're calling it. We have other metal siding and metal product that's allowed. It's just not called ribbed sheet metal.
Right, it's called shiplap metal
Yeah,
siding.
So I think it's just a matter of how it's termed. I mean, I personally don't see an issue with it. I've seen houses done like this. That's why I asked if it's exactly what I was talking about. I've seen some houses like that. They look really nice when they're
Yes.
done. Much better than some of the alternatives and some of the
Yeah.
lesser expensive out there. So, I mean, I think it's really just a matter of terminology here.
Were you thinking aluminum
No,
or galvanized?
it's
or-
steel.
It's, say.
It's steel,
It's steel.
yes.
Just like steel buildings, you know,
Yeah.
you just run in different directions, so vertically it's run horizontally.
Yeah. All right, thank you. So any other discussion among the board?
I agree with Chris. I think it looked fine. I mean, I've seen buildings like it too. It looks great.
Are we,
It would definitely be an improvement to the neighborhood for him to do this. And doesn't seem like any of the neighboring property owners have had any problems with it, or they would have shown up to dispute it.
true. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and vote on the matter. Do we have a motion to grant the variance, or?
Yes, I'll make a motion in case V 2018-006 that we approve the variance to allow the rib sheet metal to be installed as siding on that.
And I'll second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. So, V 2018-006 has been approved. Now, the next case is SE 2018-006, and this is applicant Lamar Signs. Is anyone here representing Lamar Signs? Jeremy, how does it work when a company's not represented?
Same thing, I mean, their applicant failed to show up, and so you would postpone it to the next meeting. At that point, you basically postpone it one time.
All right. Do I hear a motion to table this request until the September 13 meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I move this item be tabled until the September 13th meeting.
Appreciate that, Russ. Anyone gonna second?
Second.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, all in favor of this motion to table until September 13, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so we will table case number SE 2018-006 until September 13's meeting. And we have a similar situation with the next case number, which is SE 2018-007. The applicant is also Lamar Signs. Do I hear a motion to table this request until the September 13 meeting?
I'll move to table case SE 2018-007 in the absence of the applicant until the September 13th meeting.
Thank you, Carrie. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Ben. All right, all in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll table this motion, which is SC 2018-007, until the September 13, 2018 meeting. Our next case is case number SE 2018-008, and it's being brought by Mr. David Draper. Are you here today? I am. All right, if you'd come on up to the podium, and Jeremy, if you'd introduce this case to us, please.
Mr. Draper is requesting a special exception under 2018-003, special section E, to allow for an antenna facility 150 feet in height to be permitted at 504 North Paddock Street. Do have the restrictions or the special exceptions in your packet. I won't read through all of those. To be heard as a special exception, these are the criteria they would go through, which is the effective value of surrounding property owners, the potential for interference and enjoyment of surrounding properties, aesthetics, the necessity of special exception, zoning districts, provisions of 47 CFR 25104. There's quite a few of them. I won't read through all those. You guys have those in your packet. So at the end of it, you have your alternatives to grant the variance to allow 150-foot communication tower to be built at 504 Paddock, deny the variance, approve the variance with modifications, or postpone the decision to a later date.
Very good. All right, so Mr. David Draper, if you would let us know what your request is beyond that.
Sure. I don't know how much it is beyond that,
details.
but I do have, I've tried to answer staff's comments. I've got, I only brought 4, sorry.
Karen, can you bring up the next slide, the location of that?
If you guys can share.
Yeah, this is the property in question. We're looking at building a 150-foot cellular tower on the property. I'll kind of go in order of staff's comments and do this quickly, but would be happy to spend more time on it. The first one talks about surrounding property values. First picture I've got in here is a picture of a shopping center in Fort Worth, Texas. It's University Park Village, built by Simon Property. You can see in the background there is a cell tower there. You can also see the list of tenants in this shopping center, including Apple Store and all these other places that end up on my wife's credit card. So places that I wish you wouldn't go. Point being, if you look at the next page, TAD value on this is $39 million, so I don't think cell towers have a whole lot of effect on surrounding properties. There are multiple examples I can give throughout the state, but this is just one example. Next page shows the same cell tower from a different view, and that's an event venue that's one of the more popular ones in Fort Worth, and they have no problem with it being in their backyard. So sort of my point again is I don't believe it has any real effect on property values in the area. But what got us all here is the next deck of slides. RF engineers for T-Mobile put together this packet to show there is an existing site on the southwest side of town. The blue dot in the middle is the property that we're trying to, or that we're discussing here. Third page shows the coverage that is provided now by T-Mobile. And you can see a very, the green is the coverage, the gray is not covered adequately. But the next slide would show what it would look like if we were at this location. So it's, the plan would cover downtown and east of town. That answers sort of the next question of necessity, public health, safety, welfare. I'm not saying phones won't be able to dial 911, or they can at this time, but it sure will be a lot easier with this coverage in place. Next comment was about zoning district. I believe this is classified as a non-residential zoning district. To the west and north are similar. I believe to the south and just to the south maybe is residential, but where we're looking at putting this is on the north end of the property there, so as far away from the residential zoning as we could get. Moving on down, it talked about, or a question came up about the nature of the site. This is considered a monopole. Looks similar probably to a street light, but it's obviously going to be bigger around and taller. There are some photos as we've gone through. We did look, there is an email in here that after we got this request from T-Mobile to find a location, there's an email that we tried to present a tower that is just to the northeast of this, but it is not tall enough to provide the coverage. So they would rather co-locate, but when it's not there, they can't do it. And then it talked a little bit about the carrier's master plan for additional sites. When all this wireless started, these sites would blast for 30 miles and it wasn't a problem, but it's like a highway. The more traffic you get, the more sites you need, the closer they have to be together. So right now, as I showed on the earlier picture, there is a site on the southwest side of town. The next one is 7 miles northeast up on 377. But people are using these more and more, getting rid of home phones, and we've got to penetrate inside town instead of on the highways, and like they did back in the beginning of all this. So our plan is to design this to handle two additional carriers for a total of 3 to avoid, hopefully avoid more towers in the future, but I don't know what the future looks like with this 20 years from now, so I can't say exactly what that will look like. But I'd be happy to answer any other questions that someone might have.
Mr. Draper, how tall is the tower in the 2 pictures you provided?
That one in the behind the shopping center is 90 feet.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is a request for a variance of for a 100-foot tower.
I believe it's actually 80 if I'm
150.
not, this would be 150,
150.
yes.
And right now, Jeremy, is the ordinance for 80?
80.
So this is for an additional 70?
Yes.
Yes.
And if I recall, it was our last meeting where we denied someone an extra 10 feet.
Correct.
So what happens with the possibility of only getting an 80-foot tower?
We're not gonna, on that map, or excuse me, the, what they call a heat map in that package they put together, it won't reach, as far east as would be optimal, and would probably necessitate another tower or another location to be installed on the east side of town. I'm not saying that's this year, next year, but at some point. What this does, it's 80 feet but is a Band-Aid, 150 fixes it.
You said you're planning on cohabitating other carriers on that pole. What height is your antenna gonna be placed at?
T-Mobile will be at 150, and then you can space them 10 feet apart, so the next available would be 140, and then 130.
All the way down to 80?
Yeah, I mean, we could,
Or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, in the previous meeting that we had, I mean, 80 foot being the maximum set by the ordinance, and they would go down all the way to 50 feet and say that it would be effective. Why is T-Mobile not effective at those heights and have to be at 150 feet? What's the difference?
they're just trying to cover a bigger area. I mean, they're, again, they could go at 80, but it's not going to cover what they're hoping to cover for the next 5 years. Unfortunately, they want to get it taken care of right. As I was pulling into town, there's some sign about welcome T-Mobile to town, so they're making a splash here, and they want to make sure they're going to provide the coverage that they're promoting. They can't promise that 80 feet they're going to cover that side of town.
Any other questions?
And we could design this tower to handle 6 carriers, there just aren't 6 out there. So, you know, if there's a question of more or whatever that may be, we'd be happy to design them for more. But with the, I believe SBA owns that tower to the northeast, I believe AT&T's on there. They've got a location, there's probably a pretty good chance that if we could get this built, they might come over to our tower because they cover a better area, but I can't promise that either.
Yeah. It's a dramatic request, if you will, because, like I said, we just entertained a request for an 80-foot tower to have a variance of an additional 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And we had objection from the community to a degree, but then it just seemed like it wasn't about coverage as much as it was about the ability to rent that extra additional space out to other carriers. And you can see our concern there
Sure.
would be, we want there to be sufficient coverage within the community, but at the same time, we're opening up a can of worms if we allow this kind of airspace via the antennas to be just used as
Right.
as more marketplace, if you will. And so
Understood. No, I understand. We presented this to the engineers that we could go at 80 feet per the code, and that's just not gonna, they said at this point, it's not worth it to build a site if they can't cover. They would rather look elsewhere or they don't have the budget for 2 sites here right now, and so it would probably be spent elsewhere.
Any other questions for Mr. Draper? All right, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
We might have you back up.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Shire, do we have anyone from the community noted? No?
Can I ask a stupid question?
Well, besides that one, no, just kidding. So, would we need for him to go ahead and sign a sheet and have him come up to the podium? Yeah, let's do that. I think that'd be better. So do you want to go ahead and sign in?
Yeah, I will.
All right, thank you. Mr. Backus.
Bailey.
You can go ahead-
Bailey.
You can go ahead and let them come up and talk. We can get
Yeah.
the form afterwards.
Feel free.
we'll get that filled out after Shira.
I believe I see a neighbor of this, site in the audience too. I don't know if they wanted to speak or not. Did y'all wanna speak after Mr. Bailey?
You're thinking about it?
Just out of curiosity, 1,000 years ago, back in the 80s, I had a propane business and I had two-way radios. And I was on the tower for 17 years at Bramley. And I think my license, I had to have an RCC, some kind of license.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that antenna was 110 feet, but I don't remember. Can you tell me how tall that tower is?
Was it in city limits at that time?
No, it's not.
Okay, big
So it's-
difference.
Yeah, but it's Bramley's implement, that, it's out there on the tallest hill. And there was like 8 of us that were on that tower, but we were all two-way radios back before cell phones.
Right.
And I'm just curious, because I was thinking about what was on my license. So that's what the stupid question.
Right. That wasn't stupid at all. So, Mr. Bailey, are you for or against it? What's your question had an implication, I think, but I just wanna.
I see them, I don't wanna throw rocks at Mr. Draper, but I see them all over town, and I don't think any of them are over 80 feet. So I would say that I would deny it, but who knows?
Thank you. Did anyone else from the community do you wanna go ahead and sign in too, and then you can come on up to the podium and just introduce yourself to us and then make your case? Barbara Touchon?
Yes.
All right, thank you. If you'd introduce yourself and then let us know what you're thinking.
Okay, I'm Barbara Touchon. I live at 486 North Paddock.
Okay.
This tower is gonna go at 504 North Paddock, which is like 200 feet from my property. The only thing I'm concerned about is I wanna make sure it's not gonna interfere with my TV, my internet, and especially my cell phone.
What brand are you using for cell phone coverage?
Right now, AT&T, which is right down there at the corner of the railroad station. I used to be with T-Mobile and loved them. But one of their towers was on someone's property that they refused to let them get on and repair it, and it broke down. And so I could stand out in the front yard and I could get maybe one bar. And I finally had to leave T-Mobile, and I was with Consumer Cellular Phone. And when we complained about our reception, they said, give us your address, and we told them, and they said, oh, you're like less than 500 feet away from the AT&T tower, would you be willing to switch? And we said, yeah. So we've gotten great reception since then. This tower coming up between me now and my telephone tower, is it going to affect any of my reception as far as my TV, my internet, which I'm with Northland Cable? I mean, how is it going to affect
Right.
me? I own that house, and then the house directly behind it owns Sloan, which would be less than 200 feet from this tower.
So you're concerned about possible interference
Right.
with your existing
Yeah,
service. And
reception and,
that's beyond my area of expertise, and I'm pretty sure it's beyond the area of expertise of anyone on the board. But maybe Mr. Draper might have an idea. If you, I don't object to you answering the question for us.
Yeah.
If you-
I'm sure T-Mobile would love to have you back. As far as interference, yeah. Unlike a lot of things like microwave and TV, well, TV is, but there are some frequencies out there that are not regulated. Cellular is extremely regulated. They have to buy bandwidth, and they cannot operate outside of that bandwidth, nor do they want to, because they don't want the interference either. So there is absolutely no risk of interference with any of the things you listed being caused by T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon or Sprint. That would not be a cause of interference for any of the things, or any other carrier for that matter. So they can't, there's huge fines, and they don't even want to do it. So the way their technology is set up, they could not do it.
Thank you.
It's 70, the one to the northeast is 75 feet.
And where in the rhomboid shape there is your tower, the north end of it, did you say?
Yes, correct. Up at the top where it comes to not quite a point, which I assume
Karen,
is
can you go to
further
the
from
next
here.
slide, Karen? I think we have another, one more. Try one more. One more.
A lot of
There's a
colors.
little-
Can you try one more? Was that it? Okay. All right. I didn't provide what was in the packet, but
Okay.
on the slide.
Yeah. I think in there, I don't know if anybody wants to hold it up. I didn't bring it back up, but we've done a site plan that, yeah, it's hard to see, but yes, I think that shows you. If you guys want to see it, you're welcome to, or I'll give you mine. And I don't know where the other group that was trying to extend the tower to 80, but I don't know if it was in this area, but we'd be open for them. This is not, we're not going for the 150 just to have other carriers. T-Mobile wants that spot, but the spots underneath would be available if it was in the area.
thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone here who owns that property?
City of Stephenville owns that property.
All right.
Now, there is no agreement at this point. The first step is for them to get the variance before the city will negotiate and even entertain it. We really haven't even entertained it at a council level yet, so, we would consider it if they get a variance. That was
That's interesting. The denied request last time, have they already purchased that land and they're building the tower regardless whether it was 80 or 90?
Yes.
And so they're not looking to this issue thinking, oh, well, we'll just put our tower on that one. I mean, our equipment on that tower, that 150-foot tower.
The last case, the lease was already in place, it was going.
The lease was in place, that's what.
They already had the lease done.
That was my understanding too. It's just an interesting situation that we have going here. All right. Anyone else from the community want to speak to this request? All right, well, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing part of this particular request, and now if there's discussion among the board, this would be the time to do that.
I think we were pretty clear in the last meeting that we had that we wanted to maintain the 80-foot restriction that we had. And the difference between 80 and 150 is gonna be their coverage area, not that it would preclude them from putting one up and having an improved area, but they would have to have a second side. So we need to determine whether we want multiple 80-foot towers or we want to have one 100-foot, 150-foot tower. So that's really
For T-Mobile.
for T-Mobile.
Yeah.
So, my opinion is that we set a limit at 80 feet. We've enforced that 80 feet all along for all the people in the past. It should probably be enforced going forward at 80 feet until which time the city decides to amend their ordinance to change it.
I think the last part of your statement is really key there, until the city decides to change the ordinance. I mean, because
That being said,
we're not really here to legislate, we're here to appeal, to grant appeals, and in a sense, it seems like this kind of request is us changing the law in a way, so.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Chris. The maximum is set at 80. If the city council, or planning and zoning, if they're involved, feel like that they want to raise that, then they can raise it to whatever height, and everybody can compete and go as high as the new maximum is. But to award one company 150 feet on a 70-foot variance, it gives them a competitive advantage over the others. And I believe it's the city government's objective is to create a playing field so that everyone, has no particular advantage. So I'm in agreement with Chris on that. I'd love to have better communications in Stephenville, but I don't think this is the way that we need to go about it. We need to leave it, to the council to decide that.
Point's well taken. I think we're in agreement on that. All right, so do I hear a motion to grant the appeal here?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that in case SE 2018-008, that the request for a special exception be denied.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on this motion? All right, all in favor of the motion to deny this appeal or this request for a variance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So hearing none, this case, SE 2018-008, requesting a special exception under ordinance number 2018-003 has been denied. Our next case is SE 2018-003, and the applicant is Arrington Outdoor Advertising. Do we have a representative from the community for that? I mean, from that company?
I'd like to table the item and go to the next meeting.
Well, we tabled this item last time.
No, it was tabled as a result of the board tabling.
But it was still tabled.
Jeremy?
Point of order.
I mean, I think if you guys, this is me, I think if you guys want to table and allow it to table, you can. I mean, so I wouldn't be overly concerned about tabling the second time because of that. I don't know I'm not 100% sure the point of order on that, so I would probably say we allow it and we do it if you want to. If you don't want to, then we hear it and we can do that too.
Jeremy, I think if you table it twice, they have to start over with the application.
Okay.
I think that's right. I'm not 100%.
Why are you wanting to table it a second time?
There's some information that I need to get pulled together. I haven't got everything I want to get to, so I need time to do that.
That does sound, Carrie.
Respectfully, members of the board, we've got opposition here, and we're prepared to make our presentation, if you would please forward.
I think both representatives that were here, it's been on the board for 2 months, it's ready to get scope. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'd say let's hear it.
Not
I
deny the
think,
request to table. Make a motion to deny the request to table.
I hear a motion to deny the request to table this case, and
second it.
do I hear a second, Ben? All right, all in favor of denying the request to table?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so we'll move ahead and go ahead and hear this case. Case number SE 2018-003, and you're obviously representing this request, so
are we sure that that's the appropriate protocol for not allowing me to table? Jeremy said he doesn't know if that's the proper protocol, so I want to make sure.
You can take a brief recess and I'll find out.
let's do that. We'll take a brief recess until Jeremy can find out for sure if the point of order is being followed properly, so. And while we're taking a little break, are you all signed up to be able to speak at the podium?
I need to correct mine, I said C, I should have put F.
Definitely, because we wouldn't want to have to deport you because of improper,
That would be a terrible
yeah, improper paperwork.
I got it. I corrected it for you.
Thank you.
I know.
I've never sort of walked through all the big now, I mean, all big ones.
It's funny, I lost my original minute, my original agenda, where I had all my notes. Where I did this. It's funny. Yeah, I was writing them like tabled and, but she's been keeping notes, so. It's just like, where'd it go?
You stick it in that one?
I might have. Sure. I don't think so. Oh. Man, it hurts me to say no to a 150-foot tower. Just because, but then it's just not fair. Yeah, like let the, yeah. They can still build a tower. It's not like we're saying build a tower, but to say 150, and then you have an extra 7 carriers, or even more. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Now those radio towers, whole different frequency. And even then, it's not about the height of the tower, it's about the height of the elevation, if it's an FM versus an AM.
That's our attorney, it has to be informal consent of the board, so the board doesn't want to consent to it, then we have to hear the case. So it's up to you guys. Randy said that was smoking gun, so. So it takes formal consent to withdraw, and so if you guys don't wanna give formal consent, then we have to hear the case.
We didn't grant formal consent.
We did.
All right, so we have consulted with the city attorney, and according to zoning ordinance 21.1.d,
Bring us back into session.
Oh.
A formal bring us back into session. A motion, or you're
Reconvene.
reconvene time and all that.
all right, so at 4:46, we're
Sorry.
reconvening, re-entering the session. We're no longer recessing. Is that good enough? Do we- All right. So according to zoning ordinance 21.1.d, withdrawal of appeal, it says no appeal shall be withdrawn after giving a public notice or prior to board action thereon without formal consent of the board, and we did not consent. We've already heard a motion to deny that request for a tabling, and so we'll go ahead and hear this request today, and especially in light of the fact that we have various parties here who want to speak to this matter. So, this is case number SE 2018-003, and we have a representative from Arrington Outdoor Advertising, and you're actually the property owner, And so, if you wanna come up.
I'd like them to speak first, and then I'll follow.
That's not how it works, but, Jeremy, if you wanna go ahead and just, introduce this case to us,
Applicant Arrington Outdoor Signs requesting a special exception under section 1211 to allow a billboard to be constructed off premise at 2045 North US Highway 377. As you guys know, this was tabled last meeting. You do have we should have some slides if you'll kind of click through those, the location of the sign. If you click through again, Arrington Outdoor Signs did make an attempt, or they have tried to answer some of the questions about safety, and they did provide some renderings of the location for the signs to give you a better depiction of how those signs will be laid out. And I believe he has provided some additional information in your packets, some studies regarding the highway and from, I think, the College of Virginia. Those were provided by the applicant, not by staff. I did talk to, one of the questions that came up last time was about TxDOT and what they take into consideration. TxDOT says they take into consideration the traffic patterns. They don't take into consideration the type of business that's there. But there are, when you start talking about traffic, that's the size road is considered. So there is quite a bit that goes into TxDOT's approval of billboard signs. And so I think that may answer your guys' questions you guys had last time. The applicant is here. He can speak in favor of that and answer any questions you may have.
and the city's recommendation was that the staff had no objection.
Well, he's met all the requirements of it, and so just to clarify, when we say we have no objections, we typically don't lean one way or another. We'll give you guys the facts, and you guys can, decide. So our objection is, our no objection is that they've met all the regulations for you guys to hear this case.
Very good. Thank you very much. If you'll come on up and introduce yourself, and then let us know what other information you would like to share.
Yes, sir. My name's Chris Weems. I'm with Arrington Outdoor. We're the applicant for the location right there at 2045 US 377. I want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity. These are the shots that are up on the board here. And what I wanted to clarify is last time we talked about, somebody inquired about how far is the billboard off the road. And I said at that point in time it was 5 feet off the road. Well, the edge of the structure is 5 feet off the road. The column is 20 feet from the right of way. So if you go back to your initial, the photo before this one, Jeremy, if you could click it back, you're going to see that all you see coming up the road, and this is going eastbound, you'll see Twisted J onto the left of it, and you look onto the right-hand side, there's no more, if you would, looking at this sign, it's not going to divert your eyes anywhere other than straight up the road. What we want to do is Arrington Outdoor is also concerned about safety. I provided a study to you there. That study was conducted, and in essence, it's the title of the study is Driving Performance in the Presence and Absence of Billboards. And let's just jump to the conclusions. And the study was conducted by the Center for Crash and Causation and Human Factors, entitled Driving Performance in the Presence and Absence of Billboards. The overall conclusion from the study is that the presence of billboards does not cause a change in driver behavior. Does not. Neither visual behavior nor driving behavior changes even in the presence of the most visually attention getting billboard. One needs to also know that there is a CEVMS up at the Twisted J. That is a changeable electronic variable message sign. That is more distracting than a static board. There's another piece of information that I want to show you, which is this page right here. Does everybody have that copy? I think you've probably got a miniature version, is what it says. And basically, the results from the Federal Highway Administrative Study indicated that the longest fixation of a standard board was 1.28 seconds. Now, well below the 2.0 seconds that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration sets for a safety concern. When you have a CEVMS, your eyes are distracted for 1.75 seconds, or not 3/4, 1.34. So the twisted J sign is more distracting than a static board, if one wants to look at those things. Then also, what I want to talk about is the Texas Administrative Code, which you have a copy of. You should have a copy of the Texas Administrative Code. Those are the rules and regulations by which TxDOT controls the outdoor advertising business. And in Rule 21.183, there's a specific category that deals with signs prohibited at certain locations. And this addresses the safety. And the ordinance, it's a short ordinance, I'll read it to you. A sign may not be located in a place that creates a safety hazard, including a location that A, causes a driver to be unduly distracted, 2, obscures or interferes with the effectiveness of an official traffic sign, signal, or device, or 3, obscures or interferes with the driver's view of approaching, merging, or intersecting traffic. Texas Department of Transportation has issued us a permit. There's no safety issues, is what they're telling us. Now, what I want to also talk about is at night, when people are coming out of the Twisted J, the lights on the billboard are out. Those lights go out about 10:30, 11 o'clock. They're not even on. So if it's dark out there, you're not going to see anything. So a billboard can't be distracting if you can't see it. Again, no safety issues. Also, one needs to be aware that the billboard does not cause distractions. Arrington Outdoor is concerned about safety, as are the board, as everybody should be. If that board, solely as a result of that board being there, if that board causes an accident, not as a result of distracted driving, not as a result of drunk driving, Arrington will take that board down if it causes an accident, solely as a result of that billboard. So what I would request is that the board take the additional information that I provided to you in consideration, as well as request that the board use the same criteria that it used when it permitted the 2 Lamar signs earlier this year. All we're asking for is a level playing field. That's all. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
You're welcome.
Now, last time, I can't remember your name. Mrs. Ferguson came up and spoke as support of the request. Do you want to say anything this time? Did you? Well, we.
You want to speak? No,
Yeah.
Ms. Ferguson, no more.
You're
I'll get it.
more than welcome. She'll take care of you there.
I'll take care of it.
Go ahead and say, well,
If you'll just come up to the podium, just say
Last-
your name again
Okay,
and.
Paula Ferguson, Paula Edwina Keller Ferguson.
All right.
My family's been here for a long time. Last time it seemed like that the reason that we tabled it was because some of the members hadn't seen the location. And if you look in this picture, you're looking right down east toward Twisted J. You can see their building. It's 400 feet from that sign to their building. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right. Thank you very much. Mrs. Paula Edwina Keller Ferguson. Yes. All right. Anyone else from the community wish to address the board?
If I may, sir.
Sure. And you're already signed in. I know that the F instead of the whatever the.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
My name is Heath Allen. I'm an attorney, and I represent Lou Ann Johnson, Cody Johnson, Linda Johnson, and the Gifford Johnson Trust et al. respectfully, I'd like to point out some things to the board, being section 12-11 regarding prohibited signs of the city ordinances of Stephenville, and under that subsection A1 being that billboards. So we have billboards as a prohibited sign in Stephenville. If we skip forward to section 12-12, it gives the board or the city council variances with which they can consider what to do when considering whether or not to grant a billboard. It says that the BOA may authorize a variance to any of these restrictions, and I paraphrase because we'd be here all night if I didn't, that they may authorize that the approval standards shall consider the following and shall grant the variance if the following. 1, special conditions exist which are peculiar to the land and are not applicable to other lands, and strict interpretation would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties, and the special conditions do not result from the actions of the applicant, and such conditions and circumstances do not merely constitute pecuniary hardship or inconveniences, and granting the variance will meet the objectives of the chapter and not be injurious to the adjoining property owners, and the request will be the minimum variance necessary, and granting of the variance will be in harmony with the spirit of the chapter of the ordinance. So there's a lot of ands. There are 6 elements that the board must meet in order to grant the variance, and it's a shall. So they may grant a variance, shall, if all 6 of those things occur. I would argue to the board that there is no evidence of any of those 6 things before the board. There's no evidence of a hardship. There's no evidence of a special condition. There's no evidence of a higher and better use. That property was designed to be a subdivision, and now it has the partial beginnings of a billboard on there, which, back to the beginning, are banned by our city ordinance. I would point out some additional things. Apples and oranges. The safety issues, that's TxDOT. This is not a TxDOT appeal. TxDOT has decided that, so those arguments are moot, null, and void. The fact that Arrington would take down the sign if an accident was caused by it is foolish. I don't think that we have fools before us today. As Mr. Quasi had said, this is opening up a can of worms. This is more than an 80-foot tower. This is a billboard. If we have this billboard, we're going to have one in front of Taylor Feed, and one in front of Ed Horton's Pharmacy, and one in front of Golden Chick, and in one in front of wherever else in town, because we open up Pandora's box, and all hope isn't gone, but there's a whole bunch of billboards in Pandora's box if we open it. Another thing that the Honorable Board said, until the city decides to change what was in conditions 12.1 of the ordinance, excuse me, this board has nothing to do in matters like this. This board, as y'all said, is not a legislative body. It's an appellate body. Mr. McDaniel said and I add to your words. The city has said no billboards. This board is here to appeal, not to legislate. Say safety is a foregone conclusion. TxDOT has done that. So the things I would bring the board's attention back to are the special conditions that exist, the 6 factors enumerated in the variances 1212B 1 through 6, the approval standards, that the city shall grant a variance only if those things are met, and they have not been met here. The board has not heard any evidence to support any granting of the variance that's been argued for and requested here today. They've put on a good show, but there's nothing behind it. It's smoke and mirrors. Therefore, respectfully, I'd ask that the board, on behalf of the Johnson family, to deny the applicant in its entirety. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I probably won't know the answers to them because my clients are out of the country and they're not available by cell phone, but I will do my best.
Any questions from the board?
What exactly is the stance that they are opposed to this going in?
A legal stance.
Okay.
They are relying on equal protection under the Constitution, that we all live under the same rights and laws, and we all have to abide by the same rights and laws. That if someone comes in and they want to open whatever kind of business they want to open, and they cross their T's and dot their I's and do everything that is supposed to be done, there's no grounds to hire me to come up here and enumerate the things that there are to object to. So our argument is strictly legal. It's not a personal vendetta. My client doesn't know Miss, I apologize for forgetting her name. It's strictly a legal grounds that my clients are wishing to stand upon, because they expect to rely upon the law as it's written, and they're asking the board to do the same and to enforce the same.
Not to be devil's advocate or whatever, but isn't that what she's doing as well? Is asking for equal protection in her property rights to put a billboard there?
I would agree, yes, sir, but going to the plate with a bat isn't necessarily hitting a home run. You got to swing it, and you got to swing it at the right time, and they haven't done that. They haven't brought forth the evidence that gives this board ample evidence to make that decision on those 6 shalls.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you cite the variance part again, where you said the Board of Adjustment shall?
Yes, ma'am. Section 12B, it says approval standards. In granting any variance, BOA shall. Did I get that right, ma'am?
Yes, I just was
Okay.
double checking.
All right. I wanted to make sure I didn't quote the wrong copy.
And you have the new sign ordinance that was adopted in January of 2018?
It was so many pages, I didn't print the complete thing, but I believe I've got the most recent one. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Appears to be 49.
Thank you very much, Mr. Allen.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you all. May I be excused?
Yes, and you might want to come, just sit tight, because we might ask you back up.
Yes, sir.
But- Yes, Mr. Weems.
Just a point of clarification. Arrington Outdoor is not looking for a variance. We are not trying to prove hardship. Arrington Outdoor is looking for a special exception. It's kind of cut and dry. You know, we don't want a variance. We don't have to prove hardship. We just want a special exception, which the board is allowed to
We
grant.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Jeremy, are those interchangeable, special exception?
I think the special exception is way different, and I think that was the intent when we wrote this, is that a special exception is not a variance, and that was the intent when we wrote it. That special exception we treat differently.
I'm trying to find where's the special exception versus the.
The only thing is here,
See, yeah,
prohibited.
the special exception, the way I understand it, and Jeremy may be wrong, but really the only conditions that we have to deny a special exception is if it creates a
Like a hardship.
public health, safety, and general welfare issue.
Welfare.
I mean, that's
This is all
very
we have.
limited.
But even that is a newly instituted
Yeah,
standard.
it's very, very limited on the reasons why we can deny a special exception.
Oh,
It has to,
there you go,
it
yeah.
has to be very specific that they prove that there is a public health, safety, and general welfare. Those are exactly how it's termed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things, you know, I'll you know, just briefly, this last month that we've tabled this, I have made numerous phone calls and done research to many different places trying to figure this out, because this is a very difficult case for me. I see both sides. I think the spirit of this ordinance was to protect the property rights and the use of the property by property owners. And again, we have two property owners here who have different ideas of what their rights are and should be for their property. And so it's a very tough situation that we're put in to choose one property owner over another. But we're very limited, in my opinion, by the way this words here, is that we have to, in order to deny their special exception, we have to prove that there's a public health, safety, and general welfare situation that occurs by them putting a billboard in there.
Right. Before we move on to particular discussion of this case within the board, are there any other people in the community who would like to speak to this case? Just to make sure. So I need to close the public hearing part, and then we'll move on to the discussion among the board. And first, do I hear a motion regarding this case?
I think it certainly merits more discussion.
No, we'll have a discussion within the motion, I think, and then we can, right? Isn't that how we do it, Jeremy?
Typically, you should entertain a motion,
Yeah.
and then you have discussion, and then
Yeah.
you can
Mr.
amend.
Chairman, I'd
and
be
you-
glad to make a motion. I move we approve the applicant's request for a special exception under section 1211 to allow for a billboard construction off premises at 2045 North US Highway 377.
Thank you, Russ. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, now I think we will have some discussion here, and Chris, I appreciate your candor so far, and if you'd like to go ahead and just continue your.
Well, I mean, again, you know, that, I see both sides. Initially, when Cody Johnson came in last time, part of his discussion and being against this was that it was gonna cause block, you know, people that have seen his building, people weren't gonna see it.
Safety.
Safety, you know, Arrington has now got us some renderings. It's clear that the billboard does not, in my opinion, obstruct the twist. You know, the trees do that. You can't see it because of the trees. Even if you clear all the trees out, I think you still have a clear view of his building from not being obstructed by that. So I struggle with finding a public health, safety, and general welfare issue. At the same time, I struggle with, you know, a business that the city has been involved in trying to, you know, develop and bring in. It's definitely a positive to our city with them feeling that they are being injured by this billboard going in. And basically, if you're a homeowner, you're a business owner, whatever, if somebody's doing something on their property that you feel that you're injured by, then you're injured by it. So, whether anybody else sees it or not, that's how you feel.
Mm.
And so, and then at the same time, the property owner who wants to put a billboard on their property, I feel that we've always leaned towards homeowners and property owners being able to have the free use of their property as they wish. So again, this is a double-edged sword case for me, and I'm struggling with which way to lean. I'm just looking from you guys input and clarification on how we approve it or how we deny it.
Ben, you want to say anything to it?
Well, I think when you look at the other two cases we had this year, we approved both of them. So if you look objectively at it, I mean, it's another billboard coming into town.
And I thought about it, the big difference I have for those is we had no opposition to either one of those cases. This case, we have opposition to it. So it's a totally different situation in my opinion too, versus the two we had. Now, when you look at the spirit of this ordinance, the spirit, in my opinion, the way I read it, the spirit of this ordinance was that they didn't want billboards because it took away from the beauty of Stephenville, the skyline of Stephenville, the businesses that were there, so they wouldn't be obstructed. But then you look at where, if we're going to have billboards, where do you want the billboards? That 281 corridor is a perfect space if you're gonna have billboards that draw people into our city to develop those businesses and do all those things. So again, this is not a clear-cut case for me, and that's where I'm struggling on this.
One thing that was important to me, Chris, was the fact that it's 400 feet from the proposed billboard site to the
Sure.
next building.
Sure.
If it was 100 feet, I might not be
Yeah.
in support.
Yeah, and I agree. That's why I said, you know, I'm glad they came with these renderings now, because part of the reason I tabled last time so I could go visit again, I knew where it was at, but I never, in perspective, you know, the sign wasn't up, so it was hard to see how it was gonna cause an issue.
Right.
And I don't think that obstruction is an issue at this point, like Cody Johnson thought it was gonna be. And if he saw these pictures, I'm sure he'd feel the same way, because he didn't know what it was gonna look like either. So he's in his mind thinking, I'm gonna have this huge billboard, it's gonna block my building, and it doesn't. Obviously, I'm speaking out of turn for him, but I'm just, my own opinion, whenever I look at these pictures.
My recollection of the last meeting was that a lot of the discussion centered on visibility of the previous sign and his building. And as I drove by, not because I hadn't driven by the location before, with all due respect to that characterization earlier, I think it was more about just being able to get a better sense of, without this rendition, you know, of a rendering of what it would look like. And what I recall is driving up and down 377 and seeing trees in front of that Twisted J sign that currently exists. And there's trees on either side, and I would in no way ever want those trees to be removed, because that's so against my grain. But I just thought those trees are hindering visibility of that sign already, or not. It's an aesthetic issue. They're beautiful. The sign still works. This billboard doesn't hinder any aspect of the business purpose of the sign or the building. And so in my mind, it does not affect public health, safety, or general welfare. And that was my sense of it, was you have the right to use your property as you see fit, as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of others. The spirit of the ordinances that are written as they are at the moment. So that was my sense of it. It helped confirm for me that this billboard issue is not hurting Twisted J, and it's not going to affect safety. And I'll trust TxDOT's assessment of that. They wouldn't have given the permit if it was going to be a public safety issue. So that's just my input towards this discussion. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to grant this special exception. And it is consistent with what we've been doing before, even without even in light of lack of public disapproval on those other two.
Well, and when city council adopted this new ordinance, it says prohibited unless permitted through a special exception. If you go over to page 19, it just gives very little. And so, because they didn't say prohibited period, we have to look at it as granting a special exception. I can't find a reason not to approve it.
Yeah, I think that it's, I think it was a very smart decision on the applicant to request a special exception rather than a variance. I think that makes all the difference in the world based on our ordinances.
Even reading those conditions, some could argue, with all respect, to Counselor Allen, I think that some could argue that all those conditions were met. It just depends on the interpretation of those conditions, and so that's where an attorney on behalf of the other side would be able to argue, better than.
But that's on a variance.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
opinion
I know.
is
This is a
those
special
don't
exception.
apply to the situation.
Yeah.
And talking about the previous cases we have, each individual case has to be held on its own merits
Yeah.
based on the situation, the location,
That's right.
and all those. So,
That's true.
I mean, I guess I'm ready to vote.
All right, I'll call the question then. All in favor of the motion to grant the special request, to say yes to the request for a special exception under section 12-11 to allow for a billboard to be constructed off premises at 2045 North US Highway 377. All in favor of that, say aye.
Wait
Yeah.
a minute. Case number.
Case number SE 2018-003. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None are opposed, so case number SE 2018-003 has been granted. Has passed. So without any other business, we've tabled some case numbers, and those are all taken care of, Shira, in your notes, I'm sure. And do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
All right, Russ? Thank you, Chris. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming out.